Hey, math friends. So our learning target today is I can evaluate expressions that contain square roots. So essentially what we're going to be doing is the order of operations today. So what happens when we have PEMDAS that contain square roots? So in our order of operations, so let's move to a new screen quick so we can just take a look at that. When we talk about PEMDAS, we have parenthesis, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now this parenthesis that we have really has three things in first place. It's a three-way tie. The parentheses you've always known is known as a grouping symbol. A square root, which we just learned how to do. So if that's inside the order of operations, we have to do that first as well. And also those absolute value bars. If there's anything on the inside of the absolute value, you have to do that first. So these are considered grouping symbols. Now, in your elementary years in math, you always just focused on the parenthesis. That's why that P is there. But really, all three of those are grouping symbols. So the stuff on the inside you have to do first before you work through the rest of the order of operations. So it functions just like a parenthesis. All right, let's go back to our work here. So we have 5 problems that you can see on the screen. They're all PEMDAS problems. They're order of operations. And we have to do the square root first. So we're going to treat it like a parenthesis. So here's our square root, and there's a bunch of stuff on the inside. All right, so we're going to tug of war all the problems on the inside here. So we're going to put them on teams. All right, here we go. I'm going to put the negative team on the left this time just because I happen to do that. But we have -3, we have +9, and we have -2. Now check out the sign in the middle. The sign in the middle right here says add. It doesn't say opposite, so we're just going to go ahead and put that 2 on the team negative. So we have negative, team negative, and then of course the +9 is team positive. So team negative results in 5 players on team negative. Who's stronger? Team positive is stronger by 4 players. So the results of this is +4. Now that's all the stuff that's on the inside of that square root. So keep in mind that that result is a 4, but really what we're doing is we're taking the square root of 4. So reminder, we have a square. What number, when multiplied by itself, gives us the area of 4? You should be thinking 2. So the answer to that problem in PEMDAS is 2. All right. So let's see what happens next. So we have a square root. There's our square root. So that's like a parenthesis. But we also, on the inside, have a parenthesis in here. We also have a power. All that stuff's on the inside. This -2 that's hanging out on the outside, it's just going to have to wait because it's not in the group right now. It's not in the group. It just has to wait. We'll deal with it later. Okay, so I'm going to erase all this stuff so that I can get going. So on the inside, let's take a look at what we have. We have a situation of tug of war. So we have 14 kids on team negative, 17 kids on team positive. Positive is stronger with 3 extra players. So the result of that inside is +3. So we have the square root symbol. This result is 3, but that square, that little 2 is still sitting there. On the outside, we have -2. The outside's going to have to wait. It's not in the group. And we just learned about powers, or exponents as we call them. 3 to the second power is, boom, 3 times 3, which is 9. So we have a 9 sitting on the inside here. I'm just going to write that as a 9. So the symbol, as we just learned about, is the square root symbol. So it says if we have a square that has the area of 9, what's the side of that square? And you should recognize or remember that the side of that square would be 3. Now we're finally out of the group. And 3 subtract 2, if I haven't used it, drag it down, is equal to 1. Okay, so let's take a look at this next example. All right, you'll have some to try on the next screen as we go here. So this next example, we have a square root here. It's a grouping symbol, and we have the opposite hanging on the outside. The plus 11 not in the group. It's going to have to wait. So we look on the inside, we have this 2 to the third power going on there. And we know that that means we have the number 2, and we're going to multiply it 3 times because the exponent tells us how many times to multiply the base. And 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. So the result of that would be 8. So I'm going to go ahead and write that 8 there. Kind of doesn't really look like an 8, but I'm going to have you roll with that. So much easier to teach on a smart boarding class, but we are going to do this. Okay, so inside here we have a 17 plus this fancy pantsy 8. All right, this is on the outside, the plus 11. So inside this grouping symbol known as a square root, we have a 17 plus 8. So we're going to group that together, which gives us 25 inside the square root, and the opposite is hanging on the outside. All right. Sorry, I got to move this, otherwise I'm not going to have room to write. So we have 25 here inside the square root, and we have opposite hanging on the outside. If I haven't used it, drag it down, drag it down. So now we have a square that has the area of 25. The square root of 25 is 5, but now we have to take the opposite of our answer. If I haven't used it, drag it down, drag it down. The last step then of this is to tug a war. All right, so we have 5 friends on team negative. There's our jersey. The sign in front is our jersey name. And 11 friends on team positive. Who's stronger? Positive. How many extra friends? 6. So the result of that problem would be 6 using the skills of order of operations with square roots. Okay, I'm actually going to skip these 2 questions just because of time, because we're already at the 7-minute mark. So now, let's take a look at some situations where things are separated as different steps. Okay, so there's some square roots in there. So as we take a peek at this, evaluate the expression. So we know that this symbol is just like a parenthesis, so we have to do that first. But also pay attention that when things are smashed together mathematically, it really means to multiply. So what's the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. If I haven't used it, drag it down, drag it down. If I haven't used it, drag it down, drag it down. Again, another square root here. Got to do that first. That's a 9. 9 times 9 makes 81. The sign in between is multiplication here. And we get a 3, drag it down. So we dragged down the 2, we dragged down the multiplication, the square root of 4, we dragged it down, we dragged it down, we took the square root of 9. So now, you know PEMDAS says that you add and subtract last. So fortunately, we don't have any negatives here, so we don't have to worry about triangles, but we have 4 plus 27. Because 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 9 is 27. So 4 plus 27 gives us the result of 31. So that's how you would do separate square roots, but in the order of operations. Okay, so we're going to do these 3 together, and then you have an entire page to do on your own and try to navigate of like, what do you know, what is it that you need help with, and then at that time, we would be able to interact on the things that you need help with. Okay, so let's take a look at next. So now, square root of this quantity. So what we have to do is we have to do the inside first. And we have 400 divided by 4. So we want to know how many times does 4 go into 400? And we know that it's 100, but still inside the square root. On the back side, we have the subtraction sign here, right? So that goes with us. On the back side, we have 100 divided by 4. And we know that there are 4 quarters in a dollar, so we're going to say that that's 25, and there's this square root symbol around it. So we have to do the inside first, just like we would do a parenthesis. So now let's think about that square root symbol, which is just the square, which is an area of 100. So that means the side of that square is 10, because 10 times 10 is 100. And we have a square that has an area of 25. So that would be a 5 by 5 square. And now we just have this math problem of simply 10 minus 5. Of course, we could tug a war at, but you all know in elementary school that results in just a simple positive 5. All right. So that's how we would evaluate expressions when we have lots of stuff going on with the square root. So we're going to try these two, and then we're going to do a pause on the video, and you're going to try some on your own. Okay. So let's do the inside of the video, or inside the square root first. 18 divided by 2 is 9, but it's inside the square root. So we're going to build ourselves a square, and we want to think about what is the side length that makes that area of 9. And the square root of 9 is 3. It's just 3. Okay, because 3 times 3 is 9. All right, last problem together before you give this a shot on your own. So order of operations, right? We have this order of operation that says you have to do all grouping symbols first. Well, this technically is a grouping symbol, so we have to do that first. So we're going to grab that right away. And the square root of 64 is 8, because 8 times 8 is 64. Now keep in mind that this is a multiplication sign sitting right here. So if I haven't used it, drag it down, drag it down, drag it down. If I haven't used it, drag it down, drag it down, drag it down. So now for order of operations, what has to happen first? You guys know what happens first in math order of operations. Who is stronger? Who goes first? Add or multiply? Multiply is stronger. So we're going to multiply first. Fortunately, we don't have to use the triangle. And then if we haven't used it, drag it down, drag it down, drag it down, which results in 29, just a 5 plus 24, two positive numbers that you know how to add together forever. So we're at the 11-minute mark of the video right now. You're doing a great job. Hang in there. I know this is tough. I'm going to have you try some on the next page, and then that will be the end of our lesson. But I really do want you to give this a fair shot. So it kind of summarizes everything that we've been doing in our work today. Some of it will be stuff that you've already seen. So I'm going to have you try this page. When you're finished, then push play, and then I'll go over the answers. But please actually give it a real shot. Okay, so you should be pushing pause right now on any paper or a whiteboard or whatever you have. I would like you to try these problems. All right, so you should have tried these problems, and we are going to give this a shot. Now, the first one probably was a little bit trickier. I should have probably given you something a little easier, but I failed you on that. But if this is a square, what number multiplied by itself gives you 196? The answer is 14, which is not an easy one to just think about mental math, so I apologize for that. That's a tough one. So the answer should be 14 for number 1. All right, 7 left. Square root of 49. I can see that there's an opposite sitting out here. We'll deal with that in a minute, but the square root of 49 is 7. But now we take the opposite of that, which results in negative 7. The square root of 400. The square root of 400 is 20. And we did that one in class 2, which is a little tricky. So 1 and 3 are not the best examples to give you, but they're kind of, you know, they're a good challenge. So if you got it, awesome. If you didn't, I apologize. Those aren't great examples. Okay, number 4. The square root of 4 is what side multiplied by itself gives us 4. Answer should be 2. That's a nice, easy problem there. And then we take the opposite of that. The opposite of our answer is negative 2. Question 5. Reminder that this works like a parenthesis. So we do all the stuff on the inside. And 9 times 4 on the inside actually is 36. So now we just have to take the square root of 36. And the square root of 36 is 6. Okay, so hopefully you're 5 for 5, or at least 4 for 5. 80% or 100% would be ideal, right? A or B kind of on that set. Question 6, and if not, it's okay, but just make sure that you're giving it your best shot and that you're going back and reviewing. This problem we already did, I believe we did this problem in just our practice set here, but that's 25 on the inside of the square root. 100 divided by 4. Yeah, we definitely did that problem. We build our square. And what's the square root of 25? Result should be 5. The square root of 25 is 5. Hopefully you are 6 for 6. We have 2 left for today. We're at 14 minutes, and then we're out of here, okay? You're doing a great job. Let's do it. So, last problems of the day. Remember that this is a grouping symbol. It has to happen first, so we're going to do that first. The square root of 49 is 7. Because 7 times 7 is 49, so it's a perfect square. The operation that sits on the outside here is multiplication. If I haven't used it, drag it down, drag it down, drag it down. Now the question is, what do I do first? Do I multiply or do I add? multiplication wins. 3 times 7 is 21. I've been really nice with you on not having too many negatives in here. And we're going to add 5. So that becomes 26. So 21 plus 5 is 26. All right. Doing great. Doing great. All right. Question number 8. We have to do the inside first, okay? So we're going to go in here and do the square root of 25. And the square root of 25, as we know, is 5. So the square root of 25 is 5. We attach this power here, which is squared. And I'm going to write the rest of the problem. Times 4 square root 16. Just write that down. Just drag it down, drag it down, drag it down. We know that we have to do the square roots first because it's a grouping symbol. So I'm going to build a group or a square around that. And the square root of 16 is 4. We know the operation between those problems is multiply. So I'm going to drag it down, drag it down, drag it down. All of that. I'm going to drag all of that down. So I killed that square root. I killed that square root. I dragged everything else down. Now, parentheses are dead. All the grouping symbols, the parentheses, the square roots, and so on. Exponents come next. 5 to the second power is 5 times 5. Not 5 times 2, 5 times 5, which results in 25 minus 16. 25 minus 16. And 25 minus 16 is 9. So the very last step is subtract. Okay, so that is the end of our lesson today. Remember, the moral of today's lesson is that when you have PEMDAS, that parentheses do come first, but so do square roots and absolute values if they're in the problem. You have to do all the stuff on the inside first before you can go through the rest of the order of operations. All right, so that's our lesson for today. Have a glorious night. Great job today. You got this. Keep it up. You can